Yo, this is From Trash to Treasure, the story of the Nas's Like Beat. Let's get into it. Now, if you're of my age, or at least of my age range, I'm an old hip hop head. I was in high school when Nas first debuted. I'm sure you remember where you were when you heard Nas. I mean, if you were a true hip hop head and you cared enough about the music, the culture, everything, I mean, there's no way Nas was gonna slide past anybody. You know what I mean? He was highly regarded as like the second coming of Rakim just from that one verse off the Main Source record. I mean, I'm waving automatic at nuns. Come on, man. People weren't spitting stuff like that in '92. I mean, especially people young cats. I mean, he was young. What was he, 18? It was nuts when he caused such a stir. And like that's what I mean. When there's significant things that happen in culture, and your personal discovery of Nas is probably one of them if you're from that era. And then soon, right after the Main Source album, he drops Halftime. Him and Large Professor again, and this time it was for the Zebrahead soundtrack. I don't know if you remember that. That was like a hip hop adjacent type movie. It dealt with interracial relationships and stuff. The movie was decent. You know what I mean? It made its statement, but but if anybody remembers Zebrahead, they remember because from Zebrahead soundtrack, the Nas song Halftime. You know what I mean? That's what people remember. It was just like, can this dude do anything wrong? You know what I mean? Everybody knew he was going to be dropping an album. It was the buzz that Columbia signed him. You were hearing little chirps here and there of what was going on. Now remember, this is I mean, the internet was around barely back then, but it's not nowhere near like it is today. There wasn't websites and stuff like that back then, other than word of mouth, magazines, like of course, like The Source, Word Up, Rap Pages, Vibe magazine, stuff like that. That's where we got our news from. And of course, like The Source was the Bible, you know what I mean? The hip hop Bible considered back then. They were writing up on Nas a lot, and we were slowly finding out that this was going to be a multi-producer album. I can't remember who we heard first, but I'm sure it was either Pete Rock or Premier. We were hearing about they were going to be on it, and then Q-Tip, and just the whole lineup. And my homeboys, one of his best friends, dude he went to high school with, he had moved from Maryland to Jersey, and I remember when he used to come back down here, he would bring tapes from New York. Of course, typical story, but come back down, bring the tapes from New York. It'd be like the SNS tape, or like doo wop, or whoever was popping at the time, whoever had the hot tape at the time, Kid Capri, whatever. And I remember hearing New York State of Mind. Something told me that's Premier. You know what I mean? Now you got to realize Premier then is not the Premier we know today. Premier then was more dope loops, still, found the dope loops, and I wouldn't say chopped drums as much as I would say manipulated drum breaks. It wasn't much chopping. It was more or less adding a ghost kick here or a snare. You know what I mean? It was more just manipulated drums than chopped drums. It wasn't the gappy, like Premier type sample chopping that we know today. Back then, it was more or less he was doing loops, maybe had to extend the loop a little bit at the end, maybe chopped it a bit, but it was more or less just loops and drums. Like I said, just manipulated drums. And yeah, man, I was spot on when I heard that, and thought that was primo. And when the album came out, New York State of Mind, that joint was crazy. Represent, Memory Lane. I mean, the whole album was just bonkers. I mean, that's no secret. But of course, I just always gravitated to the Premier stuff. I loved his drums and just the sound of it. I don't know. I mean, I loved them all, Pete Rock, everybody, but Premier, I just always loved Premier's stuff, even from No More Mr. Nice Guy album. I mean, I just loved his sample selection and everything. Of course, a few years later came It Was Written, I Gave You Power, which was another bonkers joint by Primo and Nas. I mean, that joint was, I mean, not just the concept of Nas being but rapping from the aspect of being that, but everything about it was nuts. And then I remember specifically my homeboy who I was with like every day at this time, DJ Boo Man. How you doing, bro? Yeah, DJ Boo Man from here in Baltimore. We were working together at the time for a few years, and we were around each other like every day. We used to work at Unruly Records here in Baltimore, and he ran the studio, I ran the record pool, and I mean we were together on a daily basis. And he was always popping up with somebody's tape or something, or I would wind up getting like like used to cut the snippet tapes that used to come out. And it's wild because I got not that long ago found on a dig. I found it was written tape sampler sealed, and yeah, I got that, and I'm proud of that for whatever reason, just from the collector aspect. But anyway, I would always get something new or here. We was always trying to blow each other away with what we found, like over the weekend or whatever, or what we became privy to at the time from another DJ or whatever. And I remember we had just started receiving records from Columbia Records for our record pool. They sent me, and I was kind of upset, but what can you do? At the time, we had, I think, like 50 DJs, so we would get like 2 boxes of records, which would be 60 records, and we would give everybody one copy, and then like the main DJs, radio DJs and stuff, we would double the records up so they'd have doubles of it. I remember getting Nas's like and only getting like a few of them. And I was like, oh man, like everybody's going to be coming in asking for this record. And I already got my two. My two are set aside. You know what I mean? That was first. You know what I'm saying? If there was 10, oops, I mean, there was 8 because my two are gone already. They're sitting there at the door waiting for me to go home. Yeah, I just remember that. These were early copies. I remember listening to it and oh my Lord, that beat. Good Lord. I mean, the drums alone when it came on with the birds chirp with that the bird chirping sample. I mean, that was nuts alone with the Nas is like, it was just like, oh man. And when that sample dropped, if there would have been a camera back there, it'd be a picture of me with my jaw on the floor. I mean, that joint was bananas. I mean, when that dropped, it was just like, oh my God, they have done it this time. Boy, have they done it this time. Classic joint. We're like, yeah, we're gonna find that sample. So this is, like I said, this is what, 99. Yeah, we set out, we're gonna find a sample. Nobody knew what this sample was. And me and like, I'm sure it was me and Boo Man and a couple other cats we would dig with. We were like, yeah, we're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. And okay, years start to go by and we don't find it. And, the internet starting to prosper, you know what I mean? And you have message boards, websites, whatever popping up where people would congregate, the diggers and the producers and DJs and all of us. We would be on these message boards, and of course we'd be talking about Shook One's Part 2 sample. What's that? What's that? What's that? And there was a bunch of false leads on that one before anybody found out what it actually was. There was a bunch of false leads on the other Mobb Deep joints. That was another one that people were trying to figure it out. And Nas's Like was way up there as well as Crooklyn Dodgers, the Q-Tip sample, the record Q-Tip sample for Crooklyn Dodgers. That was just ooh, that was up there too. Yeah, the Nas's Like was up there, and just nobody could figure out what this damn record was, It was crazy. And let's rewind a little bit now. It's 1998. DJ Premier is got a session coming up with Nas. It's for Nas's new album. To my understanding, things were kind of still up in the air. They just knew they wanted joints from Primo and Nas. They wanted, they knew like the album was being laid out, and this was one of the sessions I think that was set to take place. And Premier apparently had drums were kind of, well, I guess, programmed already. He had the birds, the chirping sample. He even had, to my understanding, the Nas's Like, and I think the last sample, other than the obvious, last samples he grabbed was the Biz. Where he says highly recognized when he gets that part from the Biz record, and he just doesn't have a melody. He doesn't have a sample for it yet, a loop or anything. I don't know if they meant he's running late on time, like literally running late for this session, or if running late on time as far as he should have had these beats ready and they're not ready. And at the time that all this is going on, like I guess literally to the moment, 45 minutes away, because Primo was living in Long Island at the time, 45 minutes away in the Bronx, Showbiz is, I guess, closing this deal or trying to close this deal. For those of you that don't know, look down in the comments. I'm sure somebody will let you know who Showbiz is. But just look up, if you need to, Showbiz and AG, and take it from there. They're from the Digging in the Crates crew. So anyway, 45 minutes away in the Bronx, Showbiz is trying to close this deal with this record store owner. The record store owner is closing the store. It's a store in the Bronx. He's closing the store and he's moving. And he, of course, can't take the inventory with him. So he pulls out everything, like his must-haves, and he tells Showbiz, You can have the remaining, it's like roughly 10,000 records. You can have the remaining 10,000 records for $4,000. Back over in Long Island at Primo's house, he's still, I guess, stressing over this beat, and his phone rings, and it's Showbiz, and Showbiz is like, "Hey, yo, Preem, yo, what up, show? Yo, this dude here in the Bronx is selling his whole record store, 4 grand. Want to go in half with me? It'd be around 5,000 records a piece. 4 grand? That's only 2 grand a piece, huh? Absolutely. That's what's up. I'll be there ASAP. Bet." They about to acquire a lot of records, and sight unseen, sounds like they're going to have a good fun couple weeks going through these records, because I'm sure Showbiz was smart enough to know if it was crap or not that he was getting. I don't think a digger of their calibers, even back then, would buy crap at that price, at that amount. You know what I mean? The amount of records. You buy 10,000 crap records. For one, you're out the money you paid for them, and for two, you got to get rid of 10,000 records now. One record, light, no problem. Throw it under your arm. A stack of them, now you're breaking your back. That's why DJs and producers and all, we hate moving. It's awful. You're moving sometimes a few hundred crates of records. It's horrible. It's backbreaking. So I'm sure he knew what they were getting, or at least had an idea, that they were getting some decent stuff, that it wasn't going to be a complete wash. You know what I mean? Now remember, this is 10,000 records for $4,000. That's, of course, it's 40 cents a record, but I mean, roughly 40 cents a record, because it might have been a little over 10,000 records. It might have been under, whatever. Just remember that 40 cents a record. I'm guessing the owner thinking the same way as what I just said about hauling these records. And to my understanding, he was moving from New York to down south somewhere. So yeah, you're not boxing up and shipping 10,000 records like that. That's crazy. And especially back then, I can only imagine what it would cost, and you know what I mean. And it's backbreaking. Plus, if it's a record store owner that is closing up shop, he's probably an old man. Yeah, I get it. So boom, Primo arrives in the Bronx, hooks up with Showbiz, go into the store, start boxing the records up. They literally, to my understanding, they literally said, "We're just going to split the store down the middle. You take one side, I take one side. We box it up. Boom, we're done." We just literally split it right down the middle. And that's what they did. They boxed their records up, you know, I guess maybe hung out for a moment, and headed their separate ways with their 5,000 records apiece. Now, upon packing the records up and, doing their sides of the store, Preem noticed that there was a box of records with no covers. It was on his side. I guess, it is as a record collector and all, it is hard to get rid of records. Not physically hard, but sometimes it's emotionally hard. Like, you just hate throwing a record away. You know what I mean? So maybe something along those lines, but Primo took the box with him. Now remember, Preem's running late for this session with Nas. Now, like I said, I don't know which aspect of running late Primo meant, but he's running late. Now, when he gets home, he's unloading these records. I'm not sure, he didn't say about if he had help or whatever. That's a lot of records to unload by yourself. So somebody probably was helping him. So anyway, he unloads the records, gets everything in, I guess, garage, house, storage unit, whatever, wherever he's keeping these records. He sees in this box of sleeveless records, there's one record that kind of stood out to him. And it stood out to him in the wrong way. It was, I guess, an eyesore. It was a 10-inch pink label, and it had a black fish on it. And of course, records are 12 inches. This was a 10-inch. I guess, I remember back then, I would have probably got rid of it too, or thought about getting rid of it, because it would have threw the flow of the records off. Even if that sounds stupid, it makes sense to me that he would have thought of throwing this record away. Plus, on top of that, written real big on the label, Lutheran. Okay, nothing against no religion or nothing, but Lutheran records ain't known for breaks or too much funk, if you know what I'm saying. Something tells him, just put the record on, listen to it. Maybe there's something on it, because I'm guessing he's thinking, damn, I still need to finish this Nas record. So he puts the record on. Like I said, it's a pink label with a black fish. It's a Lutheran Church private pressing out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's Christmas music. He puts the record on, and it's just like symphonic almost sounding, but it's got this weird narration over top of it. Real deep, commanding, booming voice dude. just doing like sounds like Bible verses and stuff over top of classically sounding Christmas music. Now, this record was seen as like the holy grail of DJ Premier samples and even Nas oriented samples. Diggers and beat makers and producers. I mean, everybody was looking for this record. And in 2008, an MP3 popped up online by Dusty Kid from Strictly Breaks. Now, this was the sample. This was obviously the Nas's like sample. I mean, for the Digger record internet, it broke the internet. You know what I mean? Like for us, it broke the internet. It was like, oh my God, this is the sample. Like to just hear what it originally sounded like was like it would for people like us record nerds and stuff, it was like you got chills when you heard it because we spent so much time looking for this record, and by that point it was almost 10 years, a full decade. And the MP3, it wasn't the greatest quality, but you could tell it was from the vinyl, it because it had like Q burn at the beginning of the song, but it was mislabeled as far as what the what the song was. The sample was identified as Cantata of New Life. I think I'm saying that right, by John Rydgren. Now, little did anybody know that was the wrong title. I mean, completely wrong title. Like, I'm guessing, I don't know if there's a different version of it or a different interpretation of it, but that title was horribly wrong. But the artist was right, or at least half right. The song was What Child Is This by John Rydgren and Bob R. Way. The album was Thoughts of the Carols from 1966 on Lutheran Records out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The record was more or less a collection of short radio programs from the Thoughts of Carol series created by the Lutheran Church for the Lutheran people in the 60s. And when you hear the song, I can only play a piece of it here before there's any copyright problems. But just look the song up. Like I said, it's John Rydgren and Bob R. Way. What Child Is This? Or just look up Nas's like sample and it'll come right up. And as you can hear, it sounds like Bible verses type stuff. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. Being said over like classical Christmas music. It does it's a few Christmas songs on the album that I've never heard before, or at least never heard of. But then it's like typical, the more known songs like What Child Is This, which is more or less just Green Sleeves. A few other ones that I'm sure people have heard. Not these versions, believe me, you've never heard these versions. It's like half the record I've heard of the songs, half of it I haven't. But yeah, so Primo grabs Divinity. And it works perfect with the drums and the chirping birds and the scratch. Everything. I mean, everything just comes together perfectly. Like in the Big Lebowski, how he had that rug that pulled the room together. It held the room together. This sample was that rug, and the room was Nas's like now. So that sample just pulled the entire thing together. They did the record. It came out beautiful. I heard they said they did it in one day. Like Preem finished the beat that night. I guess they did the vocals that night, and I guess it eventually got mixed. But I believe the whole thing got recorded in one day from pretty much the beat to the vocals. The song gets mixed, mastered, and as the time for the release of the album, and I guess the campaign for the album is beginning to start, they gotta pick a lead single, the first single off the album, and of course, the winner is Nas is Like, and it gets picked as the first single for the album. And it's funny because Primo has been quoted as saying Nas called him and was like, "Yo, Preem, Nas is Like is going to be the first single." And Premier said he got so pumped because everybody had singles with Nas. Q-Tip had One Love, Large Professor, had Countless. Pete Rock, of course, had Whose World Is This? And now Primo had Nas is Like. And some consider Nas is Like a pinnacle in Nas's career. I mean, some people consider it his greatest song. And I mean, I think it's way up there. I mean, way up there. Even if you're just picking favorites amongst Nas and Primo joints, it's way up there. I put it right up there with New York State of Mind. But we're reaching the end of the video, and if you're still riding with me, I appreciate you. Why don't you go ahead and smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you get all the notifications every time I upload a new video. If you want to watch another great hip hop based story, click on that video right there. So until the next video, salute.